As a designer, one of the things that you have to have cold is outcomes. Call them objectives, call them anything you want to, but you need to know without any doubt what your learners are going to be expected to do at the end of your course or at the end of your program. And this is becoming really muddled because there's a lot of conversation out there about, well, outcomes are different than objectives and goals are different than objectives and outcomes aren't goals and all these things that you hear in these conversations. And for this purpose in this video, what we're going to do is just look at the general concept of what outcomes are. And I think if you can take that to heart and put this in the middle of everything you do in instructional design, as most of us do as professionals, then this becomes easier. This landscape becomes a little bit clearer. So Dennise, when we talk about objectives, behavioral objectives, outcomes, goals, let's start with the very basics. Goals are not objectives or outcomes. Goals are general ideas of where you want to be. And many times organizations and clients will give you goals. They will not give you outcomes or objectives.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of confusion, Chuck, between goals, outcomes, objectives. I see that a lot in my students. They get confused about what is what. So in its basic sense, what is an example of a goal? What is it? What should we know as designers?
Okay, so a goal for an organization might be, we want more efficient employees. We want safer employees. We want this or we want that. And an objective would be, okay, you need to be certified in first aid and CPR. And this is what that means. And another way to do it at a higher level. So in the professional world, we look at goals and objectives in the sense that what I can accomplish within a course structure is an objective. What might be an outcome of a course is a goal. And I know that sounds a little strange, but if you think about it, okay, we want a happy, peaceful world. Okay, but how do you get there? Oh, okay, well, you got to do this. You got to be good to your neighbor. You got to do all these things. Those are objectives. And in the instructional design world, clients and boards, generally, they're talking about goals. Okay, we want this thing. But it's not necessarily what's going to happen by the end of a course. And in an instructional design context, objectives and outcomes are what you can measure and what you can observe during your course. Before the end of your course, what can you accomplish? The outcome later, whatever that happens to be, whether you look at it as a Kirkpatrick 3 or anything else, those are generally classified as goals when we're looking at a design plan, when we're talking about looking at specifications for a course. So I guess the easiest thing to say is if you can do it and be done with it during your course, it's an objective or an outcome. If it's something that may result as the outcome of having delivered the course, then it's probably a goal.
Okay, and then outcome being that perhaps at Kirkpatrick's level 3, which is something that, 3-6 months out, we look at and we evaluate did this learning stick, right? Did the things that they learned in the class environment, can they transfer that to the real world, and have they, and to what extent? And so is that something that needs to be measured in terms of like how we do that with an objective, or does it not have to be that formal?
Well, when you get into level 3s and level 4s, what you have to do is compare it to the objectives. Everything rests on your objectives. Without good objectives before you start, you have nothing to measure from. So you can't look at any boilerplate or anything else. Okay, they are expected to do this. Can they do it? It really is that simple. And there's no other way to measure it. And this is why level 1s drive me absolutely crazy, because they don't measure anything except how somebody felt about the experience. If you need that information, fine, run with it. But the designer in me says, I want to look at what we do in terms of a level 2. Can they perform the objectives to the level that we specified? That's all I care about. So when you get out to level 3s, okay, what happens 3, 6, 9 months, a year later? What are you going to base it on? You got to base it on what they could do when they left. And that's based on the objectives. It's not complicated, but it's confusing to some people. They don't appreciate the relationship and how important objectives and outcomes are, because without them, you have nothing. It's just me saying, oh, yeah, that was terrific. Okay. Well, can they do any of the things that we were going to say they could do? Well, no, but they had a good time. Facilitator was funny, had great jokes, could sing. We had 3 to 5 minutes of tap dancing. It was a wonderful experience for the students, but they're no smarter than they were when they walked in. And getting folks past this sometimes, it's one of the things that takes more energy for me as a designer than anything is trying to explain these things to folks that don't have this appreciation. But it's part of what I do, and I gladly do it. But sometimes it's a little frustrating.
When you look at the relationship between goals and outcomes or objectives and outcomes, are they are they equal in terms of a goal is the same thing as an outcome in a way, or is it more closely tied to an objective? It's more, related to that outcome.
Goals and objectives are different things. Objectives and outcomes are the same thing. You'll hear it 500 different ways, but let's go with this. Goals are generalized opinions on what should happen at some point in the future. And objectives are a student is going to be able to do this to this level of proficiency. Mm-hmm. That's an objective or an outcome.
And in terms of communicating with the client, they'll come to you with goals. We want a better workforce. We want better trained, highly happy, highly motivated, all of these goals, right? These kind of lofty goals, but the goals that are, important to them because that when they think of their workforce, that's what they want to see. But maybe they don't really know what it takes for them to be. What do you mean by you want them to be highly effective, highly motivated? And so that's where that communication aspect comes in.
That's where you have that conversation. Tell me exactly what that is.
Yep.
And the first thing I will tell somebody that tells me they want people to be happier or this or that, I said, I can't give you that. That's not, there's no way I can deliver that to you. I cannot make happy people. That's not what I do. I give you courseware, and I will give you trained people that can do the things that you want them to do. How they relate to the position or the information or the data or the process or anything else, I can't control. Yeah. There's no control to that. So as soon as I hear a client say that, I stop it right there and we have that conversation. It's kind of, okay, we need to understand what's going on here. I can't change affective domain attitudes and opinions any more than I can tell you who to vote for or whether you should have spiritual beliefs or anything else. That's not my job. I can't influence that. I would never in a million years influence that. What I'm here to do is to give you people that are trained to the level of expectation that we agreed to. Anything else is just something else.
And that's a really good statement because what that does is it tells all of us here listening to this that a professionalized training curriculum is one that is measurable, observable. You can measure those outcomes. You can measure those objectives. And if you cannot do that, then all you have are lofty goals and not an effective system to get people to mastery.
What you have in an entertainment product. So you look at a lot of these seminars where you go in and pay $500, sit there and listen to somebody who's famous, tell you how to live your life.
Those.
Yeah. And what happens after a week? Nothing changes. Nothing changes at all. Because it's a motivator, but it's a short-term motivator. I mean, 1 out of 1,000 will go on and do something spectacular, and that's great for them. But the rest of us have paid a lot of money to make someone rich because they made you feel better about something. That's not what I do for a living. I design courses. I design training. I will give you measurable and observable results. That's all I can do. If you want entertainment, I know people in Hollywood, give them a call.
I love it. Well stated. Thank you, Chuck, for that. Thank you for your insights as usual. Hopefully everybody enjoyed that and you got something out of it. Thank you so much.